Welcome back to ABC-7 Extra Sunday. We're discussing pay for play in college athletics tonight with my guest, Jim Center, Director of Athletics at UTEP, and Miners head football coach Scotty Walden. Mr. Center, it appears with this agreement that the burden falls primarily on the athletics department to pay student athletes for their NIL. I look at the example of Texas Tech softball player Nigeri Kennedy, who got a $1 million plus NIL deal with Texas Tech, luring her away from Stanford. So with them, that came from the Matador Club. That's their NIL collective at Texas Tech. Now, the Miners have the Miner Athletic Club. So then would the Miner Athletic Club become an NIL collective?
So the Miner Athletic Club is basically our fundraising arm for UTEP athletics. And its primary purpose is to raise enough money to cover the scholarships that we pay for, which exceeds nearly $5 million a year for all of our student athletes. And that's why they exist. They also raise money for athletic facilities. We raise money for Alston Awards. We raise money for cost of attendance, a variety of different things. It could be everything from endowments to something different. But at the end of the day, the collective, our collective right now, we've had two. It's really down to one called the Gold Mine Collective is going to continue to operate and do things that would hopefully generate revenue that could be used for NIL type of activities as it's approved by the NCAA. And yet we are going to be taking on the vast majority of that workload. Money that used to go through the Gold Mine Collective will now come through and into the Minor Athletic Club, but it will be deposited into what we're calling our TAF, which is Talent Acquisition Funds, right? That's really where we will be paying out any rev share revenue for NIL rights of student athletes.
Coach Walden, from your perspective, what are you seeing now, since NIL has been going on since 2021, what are you seeing now in terms of UTEP players and their NIL agreements?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in the recruiting landscape, whether it's recruiting guys here at UTEP or anywhere, I mean, it is coming down to that bottom line. The days, I think in this new era of college football, we're going to see college football programs operate differently, especially at the G5 level too. How do we, my job every day is I'm constantly thinking about how can we find different, unique ways to generate revenue. And Jim does a great job of talking about this in our weekly meetings about what are the most important things for us to be successful, and where can we, hey, go be more aggressive, fundraising and trying to get, donor funds to raise for the TAF, and then where can we maybe, hey, pull back in order to generate more revenue within our program to help pay players. But I think for football coaches, I think one of the, and all coaches, I think one of the most unique dynamics I'm seeing is keeping the culture of your locker room in the midst of all this. Because the reality is, we put a guy on a billboard, right, and the kids know, man, he's roughly making around this for a guy getting on a billboard or doing the commercial or whatever it is, right? And so how do you maintain that culture? And I think that the way we've talked about it in our shop is earned opportunity. I mean, the guys that are going to constantly, progress in the NIL and the TAF era for us in our shop are not only going to be, as Jim alluded to, guys that, are really good players, but also, too, guys that, are going to class, having a great GPA. Like, those things still matter, like being out in the community, being a good steward of this pickaxe and this logo. Those things are still relevant. And the reality is the more you do those things and the more that you get out and you become a great steward of the UTEP Miner brand, that's going to generate more marketability for you and more NIL opportunities for you to kind of get back to the core root of what I think NIL originally, when we talked about it, it was going to be, hey, when we put you on that poster, when we want to use your name, image, and likeness to promote UTEP athletics, we're going to compensate you for that. And I think that that's the right thing to do, and I think that's where we're trending and where we're heading now that it's in-house, if that makes sense.
So does an NIL alter a player's attitude and performance on the field compared to a player who may not have an NIL?
It's a phenomenal question. I think it's a case-by-case basis, no question about that. In my encounters with our players, and it's something I'm very, very thankful and proud of, I have not encountered that. There's a couple of guys been in our shop like Cam Thomas, Kenny Odom, who obviously are two out of our three all-conference players returning from last year. And I've been around Katie Johnson for a year, and he'd be the third. And all three of those guys turned down multiple offers to get in the portal, and they stayed here at UTEP. And I look at that really close. Are these guys lifting hard? Are they still running hard? Are they still? And let me tell you, they haven't dropped an inch. And I've been super impressed with that, with our culture. My constituents, I'm not sure how that's going at other universities or hearing that. I do think that there is a dynamic, though, as we alluded to earlier, about this young man is receiving this amount of money, and there's a young man in the locker room who believes he deserves this amount. And I think that's why we're very open and honest about how we talk about it in our football program. And we talk about, hey, how you can earn money. And you know what? When you're new to a program and you're just, it's an opportunity. You're carving out your path, and you're starting bare bones, whether it's as a freshman or a guy that came in the portal that hasn't produced yet, right? Or, you're starting bare bones and you're working your way up. Eventually, those opportunities are going to come. You got to give it time. But we obviously live in a microwave era where people want it now. But I think as adults, we need to explain that to young men, and we need to lead these young men through this challenging era.
That is an ongoing challenge for you and your staff
100%.
to make sure that the players are giving their full potential, whether or not they have an NIL.
Yeah, Marcus, we play the game of football, the ultimate team game. There's no game like it. One guy can't just take over the game. Defense has to be good, offense has to be good, defense has to be good, and so we have to constantly be on top of that. What you're talking about, making sure that is not disrupting the locker room, and we're still having a cohesive, unified team.
Now, I'm going to bring up Nye Kennedy again. What determines a player's worth with NIL? I guess they can go out and say, I want X number of dollars, and they can either get it or be denied, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So you just asked the $64 million question, right? We may use the term, we've all heard it, fair market value, right? What's your fair market value? How is that determined? The NCAA and the College Sports Commission, which now about to get started up and running, and they're going to be the oversight group for making sure that people stay within the cap, that any legitimate NIL deals are actually following this process, and it's called NIL Go. That the model has been developed by Deloitte and Touche, and they are going to be the entity that, Mark, if you got a deal with somebody right now, you'd have to submit it through that portal, and they'll give you the thumbs up or the thumbs down. And what they're talking about is the range of compensation. So what's your range of compensation? Well, somebody has determined that already, and they may say, hey, this deal you're trying to get through here is outside the range of compensation, right? So
does it depend a lot on the sport?
Well, I think it could. We don't know exactly what it's depending on, but it could be. Does a quarterback at the FBS level, are we all the same? Is the quarterback who starts at UTEP the same as the guy who starts at Texas? I don't know. Are we? It kind of depends. My guess would be the guy who starts at Texas probably has higher NIL valuation, and thus the range of compensation could be greater for the quarterback at Texas than it is for the quarterback at UTEP, right? So those are the kinds of things. None of us know what the algorithm is and what the limits are, but that's kind of what we're facing right now.
All right. Still ahead, what effect does this court agreement have on recruiting, and how will it affect the programs UTEP offers? Stay with us. You're watching ABC-7 Extra Sunday.